Everybody say yeah, yeah. Everybody say yeah, yeah. All of us before the election, and the second election all in Nigeria, and the second election like it was a pass.
Now, Fela Anikulapo Kuti was a man of many parts who defied the odds. Now, for many, he was a prophet, a philosopher, a politician, activist, social crusader, musician, and black president, if you have to call him that way.
Yes, indeed. Now, his life and music has influenced many around the world. His peculiar sound, Afrobeat, the music genre which he helped create, now has a following around the world, influencing so many musicians and artists in Africa as well as other continents. He is considered one of the greatest musicians to ever come out of Africa. His music was and still is a soothing balm for the downtrodden and oppressed, and many times it was a call to action.
As an artist, politically, artistically, the whole idea about your environment must be represented in the music, in the arts. So really, art is what is happening at a particular time of a people's development or underdevelopment, see. So I think as far as Africa is concerned, music cannot be for enjoyment. Music has to be for revolution.
Music is the weapon. Music is the thing of the future. Music is the weapon of the future.
Now, through his sound, he showed the transformative power of music as a force of social and political unification.
You see, Africa has not been able to contribute its own knowledge to this universe. But we have knowledge in Africa.
Once there's a good government in one African country, the whole of Africa will be liberated. See, we need one good government, a straight and progressive, clean government that knows what it's doing.
Which kind of election be this? Babala nonsense. Babala nonsense.
Wow.
You can't just have enough
You
of Fela
can't.
Kuti. You can't.
Did you hear what he said? Music not for enjoyment, music is for revolution. Wow. Deep. Well, joining us to discuss this is a custodian, evergreen music for future generation, Femi Esho. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us this day to discuss.
Good morning, my brother and sister.
This great,
Really nice to have you join us.
Great gift from Nigeria to the rest of the world. 20 years after, his influence is still as colossal as they come.
Right.
Talk to us about the man, Fela.
Well, I don't know how to start.
That's why I didn't know how to.
I know that's the biggest. She
I didn't know how to craft my
knew
question.
I could read her mind because she didn't know how to start. So it's better to push it to you.
To start with, let me take this opportunity to thank God for the wonderful children this man left. Because all over the world, I want to say with all authority that Fela has now become the greatest musician to be celebrated in about 17 countries, as we are talking about.
Wow.
I want to give my kudo to Yeni, Femi, Kunle, Sheon, and all of that to be able, due to their very hard work, to keep the legacy of this greatest man who was born 15th of October 1938. How do I start to describe Fela to start with? Because this is a man who who created a music that has become the greatest form of music in the whole world, the Afrobeat. It has become an institution for great scholars that are learning how to play Afrobeat all over the world. Now, Fela stood for a lot of emancipation of Africa. He stood against oppression. He was battered, brutalized for saying the truth. And he used the music to correct social anomalies when it was even very, very dangerous so to do. Yeah. And he paid dearly for it. But I'm happy today that we are celebrating this great man who has brought a lot of joy to the world through his music.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, it's just so difficult to start to know where to start discussing Fela from, as the case may. But let's go back to his early life. We read up on him, and it is said that when he was even going to school, he wasn't. Music was not the original agenda.
Yes.
And he got to school, and then something transformed him, thinking, deviating from the original.
I want to say, Fela is a God-ordained human being, larger than life. And God has already created what has already directed him what to do. If Fela were to be a doctor today, he were to be an engineer, he were to be a lawyer, there is no way he would have been greater than this. There is no way. But Fela did a lot. If you know Fela very, very well, you know what he's doing. I'm very, very close to him, and Fela will rehearse for about 14 hours in a day.
Wow.
And he did so many music against oppression. He did so many music to force against what was really happening in Nigeria at his time. He was sentenced. There was a story.
Well, he went to jail more than 200 times.
There was a story he told me. He was in Ibadan, University of Ibadan, lecturing, and they now arrested. They said they charged him for armed robbery in Lagos. Somebody
who was lecturing
at University of Ibadan. He faced a lot of problems with the authorities at that time, and he was able to use his music to correct so many government anomalies, oppression, and all of that.
Would you say that Fela in his grave would be happy that he actually used his music, in your own words, to correct social and political ills?
I'm not going to...
Or you know, he was able to point at those ills, but whether we've been able to solve them is a totally different kettle of fish. And now, Fela was not afraid to face authority. The military, till date, you know, when they hear Fela, definitely you can imagine that they'll have shivers down their spine. But everything that Fela talked about or spoke about in his music, army arrangement, you know, Beast of No Nation, International Tif and the rest of them.
I will not I will not want to use past tense.
Okay.
Because I believe Fela is still here.
Okay.
His spirit is still here. Fela is the Nostradamus of Nigeria, who predicted a lot of things and are still happening till today. 49 standing, 20-something sitting. Although that
99 standing,
yeah,
49
you know,
sitting,
yes.
Yeah.
And where people will be bastardized and they will not be able to say the truth. Fela went against, suffering and smiling. Yeah. Many people now eat only once in a day. That's where you have the term 010, and which is still happening. And a lot of people smile to the bank without working for it. Fela stood against all this. And people, let me give you, we pretend a lot.
Yes.
My company released the entire works of Fela in 10 years ago precisely. Wow. You cannot imagine the number of people that came there, people that were actually condemning Fela when he was alive. We had a lot of ministers, we have an inspector general of police, we have people came all over the world. I'm talking about the complete works of Fela, which we did, which we released in the year 2007 at Museum, and you cannot imagine you will not believe the number of people that came there. So
timeless.
So a lot of people,
Wow.
a lot of people were just pretending. People will go, some of these great people condemning Fela will put Fela's music in their, they will put it somewhere, they'll be hearing
Would
it
you
in their
describe them
Even in their cars,
as Nicodemus?
Yes, they will not be bold enough to support him.
Yeah.
So Fela was larger than life.
All right, now you were one person who know him very well. Can you give us maybe any of the encounters or any experience you had with him that will stand out, that you always remember?
I left his house. I left his Moshalasi house some 10 minutes before the unknown soldier thing came. I would have been a victim of the problem. Maybe I would not be here I wouldn't have been here today to be talking to you in one piece. I've just mentioned the issue of lecturing in Ibadan, arresting him in Lagos for armed robbery. And I remember a time that he showed me a lot of, this man really suffered for this country. Really suffered. And we have to thank God that somebody like Fela was around us.
Okay, we'll take a short break and we'll continue our discussion about Fela Abaneda. Stay with us.
And now you see, you are talking like white man, man. White man, when you talk small. Speed. No, man. African, we talk with black man, talk with all our mouths, man. Everybody, ayakata. Ayakata. Okay, let's go now. Official, ayakata. Official. 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 Official.
This man really suffered for this country. Really suffered. And we have to thank God that somebody like Fela was around us.
Okay, we'll take a short break and we'll continue our discussion about Fela Abaneda. Stay with us.
And now you see, you are talking like white man, man. White man, when you talk small. Speed. No, man. African, we talk with black man, talk with all our mouths, man. Everybody, ayakata. Ayakata. Okay, let's go now. Official, ayakata. Official. 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 Ayakutu. Ayakete. Ayakutu. Ayakata. Official. Official. Hey! Pass! Aha! Easy. 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 He don't say pass, man. Oh, pass. Get in the middle. Yeah. Everybody say yeah. Everybody say yeah. All of us before the election, and the second election all in Nigeria, and the second election like it was a pass. Babala nonsense. He passed the rigging. He passed corruption.
You know, when you sit in a concert, if you've been to any concert, you know, in that regard, especially Fela's concert those days, because I had uncles who used to travel all the way from other parts of the country to
just to see
Fela perform, and then go back to tell us stories of how wonderful, how the fever around, the current, the energy, the voltage of excitement.
I had the fortune of seeing him live at a concert once in Ife those days. What an experience that was.
All right, we're still in the studio with Femi Esho. He is the custodian evergreen music for future generation. We've been talking about Fela and his influence on Nigerian music, on African music, and world music. Right now, he's a legend. And if you're putting legends across the world together, when you mention people like Bob Marley, you mention Michael Jackson, certainly there's no way you're not going to have Fela and Nicola
People
Pokuti
like
there.
Wyclef Jean already has a track called Fela Kuti.
Yeah,
even his album.
Hugh Masekela, so many of them.
A movie and a stage play, of course, has been done in Fela's memory. Amazing.
Let me come to you. You have a collection of Fela's songs. Talk to us about them. What are these collections? What do they all stand for? And why do you need for a collection?
Let me start from here. A lot of people will not know that Fela is a very, very good loyalist to this country, very loyal to this country. He did a song, for instance, talking about loyalty to things that we do. That is, I'm talking of Buy Africa. He was against the idea of foreign things. That because people don't believe that they should patronize what is done in Nigeria, Buy Africa. He sang about war is not the answer. Very, very loyal. But like, I'm sorry to use an animal, goat, when you push a goat to the extreme, it will turn back as if he wants to bite you. That's why Fela that's why he became revolutionary.
Yes.
Understand? After telling you, after advising to no avail, he was, like I told you, there was nothing bad that did not happen to Fela because of his stand for good governance. And Fela did 180 songs, 48 Kula Lobitos, 132 Afrobeat, which he introduced in this world. Understand? And teaching about so many things. Are we talking of yellow fever, where people will now leave their natural thing, their natural color that God has given them, and try to become Oyibo?
Bleaching.
I know you are very natural.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Because when I say a natural woman, I know.
You know.
And I know the fake ones. Fela picked a lot of things. Bad governance, where people will not be able to live well.
Fela was not afraid to take on anybody.
At any time. He was the only musician that can face the government upside, proper and tell them the truth. And I was very close to him. And in fact, when he died, when we did the launching, for instance, like I told you, we had a very good friend, Rashid Badamosi, was the chairman of that occasion, with Ray Brugus. He took his last food. His last food was prepared by Tinu, the wife of late Badamosi. That was rice that time. And when this man died, you can imagine what no head of state, no person in the world can the kind of crowd where people walk from Lagos to to Ikeja there,
The shrine,
to
where the shrine was built.
Gbemisola and shrine and stuff like that. Till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. people were still working. There is no musician anywhere in the world, in the whole world, can be as popular as Fela.
Of course, Fela's Afrobeat has been described as Nigeria's most prized music export to the world.
It's not Nigeria, Africa's.
Yes, absolutely. Now,
Yes.
Nigeria has been practicing democracy since 1999 to date. If Fela were alive today, what do you think would be his impression about...
Fela would have been 83 by now,
yes.
by this October.
What do you think he would have been saying about our democratic dispensation so far, since 1999 till date?
Fela was almost... he did the last record, Look and Laugh, because there was nothing Fela has not said about this country. Is it the way the mother was brutalized, thrown away from the window? Is it the way it was? So many things that is Look and Laugh. At 83, because even before he died, he has already been beaten, bastardized, that he was almost becoming slightly weak. I don't think Fela would have just been like a old man washing them, because there is nothing Fela did not touch.
You think he would have had a sit-down look posture?
I don't know,
would he
but
still have been speaking from...
But I'm sure the children, like hardworking Femi and Yeni and all of that, would have been would have been working for him for the... Yes.
Do you think Fela's shoes are really too big for anybody to step into? Of course, we know some of his sons, Femi, of course, is taken after him.
I would want to say yes.
Has taken. You have some Nigerian artists
today. The shoes are too big for any of the children to wear. I'm very sorry about that, because Fela was a very strange... I've contradicted myself now. I said I will be using is, and I'm now using was.
Well, those are some of the realities, but we understand. So you can use them interchangeably.
I don't think there can be anybody like Fela.
Okay.
All right, let's bring in Foladele here before we leave, so we can hear people's reaction to...
Oh, Mike, I know you were enjoying the conversation.
We're just enjoying the discussions here, and we almost forgot that you were there.
But what I mean, I understand that. What is your favorite Fela song of all time?
No, there's so much. I can't point to one. There's just so much.
You know what mine is? Me and you not there for the same.
It's always so relevant. That song would always be relevant.
There is that lot. Water. You don't get enemy. There's so much. So much.
Good morning, Mr. Shaw. All right, so let's find out what Nigerians are saying about Fela, who lives on in our hearts forever. D says, Fela is the greatest Nigerian artist ever. His influence was beyond music. He died giving Nigerian people a voice. Simer Wood says, I think it's safe to say after Fela, Wizkid is the greatest thing to happen to the Nigerian music industry. Don't know about that. The man created an entire genre.
He's create the platform. Anything you do with it, go ahead. Why not?
Mena Victor says, Fela was way more than a musician. Fela was culture. Fela was activism. LC says Fela coupled music with activism and was arrested over 200 times. I know you spoke about that earlier, Ngozi, for being outspoken and standing for the people. Hashtag Celebration 2017. Akim Bobola says, don't ever compare Fela to any musician in Nigeria ever again. Because last week, actually, people were comparing Fela to Wizkid. I don't understand.
Really? Come on.
And it says, that man is an absolute legend. Words can't describe him and his music. Epum Michael says, Fela will be angry with a lot of us. We enjoy his music, admire his activism, and enjoy our oppressive tendencies and hypocrisy. Keep resting. Noah Tin says, Fela is the greatest music icon ever to come from Nigeria. No one is more recognized than him internationally. Legend. And that's true when you think about international rappers sampling a lot of his songs as well. Okay, and the last one here from Mr. Shitu says, Fela is a legend. He created Afrobeats. And I think that's the end of the discussion.
Without the S, that's another debate.
Yes, exactly. And it says he's the origin of the culture, which these new cats now enjoy. So the likes of Wizkid who are being compared. Mr. Esho, before I go, let me quickly ask you this. So we're in Nigeria where, you know, everyone is always talking about morals and things like that. Now, you know Fela well, and you know that Fela wasn't perfect. He loved his women, he loved his smoke.
Yeah.
And why do you think that didn't matter to us in a country like this?
What?
Why do you think it didn't matter to us that Fela, you know, had these vices like smoking, like the women? Why do you think that it didn't matter to us in a country that is so morally conscious like Nigeria?
Well, it's very, very unfortunate. Like I said, Fela preached a lot against a lot of immorality. If you know Fela very well, in the early 60s, Fela would take the best he can take in terms of drinks is water or Coca-Cola, you know. And he was a very kind person, and feeding over 100 people in his house there. And Fela was a very, very gentle man, as a matter of fact. And when it got to a level that many, many things he has sung about, people don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And he had to take it easy, very, very easy.
Right.
And I'm even very happy that the government, like I'm happy for the Lagos State government, for instance, because I know they are doing a lot of things for us to support Fela, the museum.
So government is coming around. Finally.
Yes.
Right.
You know, I'm happy that I live to see all of this, because many people were not bold enough to support his legacy.
So we just hope that the government will sit down, play his songs, and then listen to all the advice, all the advice and all the things he preached against, so that they can put themselves in order. It's all right. Thank you very much, Fela. Thank you for coming on the program, and then thank you very much, Femi Osho, custodian evergreen music for future generation. Thank you so much for coming.
If I'm given the right to introduce myself better, Femi Osho is the greatest custodian of music of yesteryears in the whole of this Africa.
That's great.
And that's why we are able to get complete works of Fela and all other musicians all over Africa.
Great.
And we applaud you for that.
No, that's really wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
We'll certainly have time to talk about African music next time. I will bring you on the show. Thank you so much.
I'm always available.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
This is where we come to the end of the week's edition of TVC Breakfast. Thank you very much. 20 years after Fela, and so many things to take home. Have a great weekend. Have a great day ahead. I am Mike Okwache.
And Ngozi Alebo, have a beautiful weekend. Bye now.
As you feel. Remember, if you know at your own, one day your cause will must die. Nigeria, get it for me.